Okay, so you've been watching the systems, you've interpreted the data, but how do you actually turn all those brilliant observations into a professional report that people will actually read and act on? Well, today we're building the blueprint for exactly that, right? You've done the hard work, you've sat there, you've watched the system, you've gathered all this data, and you've started connecting the dots. But then there's that big question: what comes next? How do you communicate what you found effectively? How do you make those insights genuinely useful? That's the challenge we're going to tackle. And this really gets to the heart of it all, doesn't it? I mean, your most amazing analysis is only as good as your ability to explain it to someone else. Observation gets you the raw data, for sure, but it's that communication piece that actually creates impact. So let's move from just seeing things to actually making a difference with them. So before we even think about writing, we need a blueprint. Just like any strong building, a good report needs a solid structure. So let's start by breaking down the essential anatomy of a really effective one. Think of a behavior report as a bridge. It's the thing that connects your complex technical analysis to your audience's understanding. It's not just a data dump. Not at all. It's a carefully crafted summary, and it's designed to be clear, structured, and most importantly, something people can actually use. This slide pretty much simplifies the entire goal. No matter how complicated your work gets, a good report has to answer these three fundamental questions. What did you actually see? So what? What does it all mean? And how sure are you? This framework right here should be your guiding light. And to answer those big questions, you use these 4 building blocks. You start with your key observations, just the raw facts. Then you pull out the important signals, the patterns that really stand out. You have to add context to explain the bigger picture, and then you wrap it all up with a short, to-the-point interpretation. That's the recipe. Now, this is a critical rule to remember. Clarity is always more important than complexity. It can be tempting to try and show off all the incredibly detailed work you did, but a great report is one that enlightens your audience, not overwhelms them. So you've got to be ruthless, cut out the noise, and focus only on what truly, truly matters. Okay, we've got the blueprint. Now let's talk about building the foundation. Because let's be honest, a report without solid evidence is just an opinion. So let's look at how to construct a trustworthy analysis that's backed by solid proof. I love this quote because it gets right to the heart of what a good report is all about. This isn't about guesswork or making up stories. It's about presenting the facts, plain and simple. Our job is to be the guide, to show the evidence and let that evidence speak for itself. And this workflow here lays it out perfectly. It's a logical, repeatable process. First, you observe the behavior. Second, you gather your proof. We're talking specific log entries, spikes in metrics, weird patterns. Then, and only then, do you form a conclusion. And that last step is crucial. You have to explain your reasoning, connecting the dots from the evidence to your conclusion for your audience. But what happens when the evidence isn't a slam dunk? In the real world, absolute 100% certainty is pretty rare. So how do we handle that gray area professionally and honestly without totally undermining our own work? Well, the answer is to use confidence levels, just like you see in this table. And let me be clear, this is not a sign of weakness. It's a mark of professional integrity. Stating your confidence level, high, medium, or low, shows you understand the limits of your data. It helps your audience figure out exactly how much weight they should give your interpretation. It's all about being transparent. All right, we've covered the structure and the evidence. Now let's talk about something that's just as important, our ethical compass. Because how we report our findings is every bit as critical as what we report. The key takeaway here is simple but powerful. Accuracy and ethics go hand in hand. You can have the most technically brilliant analysis in the world, but if it's not handled with integrity, it loses all its value. Worse, it could even cause real harm. These are the non-negotiables, the absolute ground rules of ethical reporting. You always protect sensitive information. You always use objective, unbiased language. And you always respect the privacy of people and the boundaries of the systems you're looking at. This is the bedrock of trust. Let's make this crystal clear. Look at this comparison. On the left, you've got professional practice, sticking to the evidence, using neutral language. On the right, you have the common pitfalls, jumping to conclusions, letting bias creep in. A professional report always lives on the left side of this chart. It's about what you can prove, not what you think might be true. So, we have all the pieces now, right? We've got the blueprint, we've got the foundation, and we have our compass. Now let's put it all together and really complete that journey from just observing things to truly thinking like an analyst. Let's walk through a quick scenario. Picture this. You're monitoring network traffic, and you spot something weird. A web server is making these unusual outbound connections to some random IP address it's never talked to before. Right away, your observer instincts are tingling. Now you don't just stop there and say, that's odd. No, you dive into the evidence. You pull up the firewall logs, you check the server's performance metrics. You start to see a pattern emerge, and you form a hypothesis about what could be happening. You're connecting the dots. And this is where it all comes together. You take everything you found and you synthesize it into your behavior report. You clearly state what you saw, you present the logs and metrics as your proof, you explain your conclusion along with your confidence level, and you spell out exactly why it matters. That report, that clear, evidence-based, ethical summary, that is the culmination of all your hard work. It's the tangible result of your analysis. And really, it represents more than just a document. It represents your transformation. You're no longer just someone who watches things happen. You are now an analyst, someone who interprets data, communicates insight, and provides real, tangible value. This is the goal. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. You've got the blueprint, you've got the tools, you have the ethical framework. All that data out there is just sitting, waiting, full of hidden stories. The only question left is, what story is your data waiting for you to tell?